And welcome back, everybody. Let's bring in our friend Dominic Carter here as we talk the politics of the scandal. Good job making it in with the roads. Pretty bad, huh?
It's very bad outside. I don't know what's going to happen tonight, but throughout the area, Richard, at one point my brakes actually locked as I gently tried to apply the brakes, and I almost spun out. If the advice that I shouldn't admit this, I normally ignore the advice of our meteorologists when they say stay home, but they know what they're talking about tonight. It is extremely bad out there.
And with that, it is extremely bad in Christie land right now.
Sure is.
And the investigations will play out, guys. We know both the Assembly and State Senate have parallel investigations going. We know the feds are involved in this. We know 20 subpoenas have gone out. Tomorrow night we'll get into, with some experts who've been involved in federal investigations on this, how not only the subpoenas work, but when immunity deals. But I want to talk the political strategy now, Dom. There's two schools of thought. The governor, who had planned to go to Europe, for example, just as an example, to establish some of his foreign policy bona fides and go around the world, making himself a credible candidate. Some say, no way, no how. You stay in Jersey, you deal with only Jersey business. Other people say, you do that, you're confirming the worst suspicions that this thing has basically hobbled you as an electable candidate. When it comes to his itinerary and what he should focus on, what should it be?
The governor should do exactly what he's been doing in terms of
state's business.
State's business. I can't see any possible scenario, Richard, where he should leave the country. That would not be smart. But his business of, I'm running the state of New Jersey. I'm also the chair of the Governors Association. Picking up the sympathy, as he did today, as he did at the State of the State address, where people are clapping for 2 minutes at length, you know, where he can hope that he's going to pick up the sentiment of many that, hey, the media is beating up on me, which is not the case.
Right.
Because this guy's been a darling of the media.
And absolutely. And Andrew, let's assume for conversation there's not a smoking gun, that there's not an email that directly ties him to the bridge scandal, knowledge of forethought, and we try to handle a cover-up or whatever. Let's just put that to a side. There's the drip, drip, drip of the other stuff. We saw what Mayor Zimmer had to say. For crying out loud, Carl Lewis, that's right, Olympic Carl Lewis, said that Christie once pressured him when he was then a candidate for a New Jersey office a few years back. But there's other mayors who are sounding off saying, oh, this is another example of, bullying Christie. Is that the bigger fear, that every day there's another chink in the kind of presentation, that he's the guy, he's the one reaching out, that contradicts some of the things he even said today?
You know, it's certainly not helping, and it doesn't help him shift the topic onto what he really wants to focus on, the items in his State of the State, the items in his inaugural address, or even this snowstorm, by the way, which could be a blessing in disguise for him. We've talked many times about how emergencies and natural disasters and things like that play into an executive strength. I mean, this is sort of tailor-made for Chris Christie. But at some point, the drip, drip, drip becomes just, white noise in the background to a lot of voters. There's going to be so much of it from so many different places. And, first you had the Elizabeth mayor, now the Jersey City mayor, now the Hoboken mayor. And if the mayor of Atlantic City comes in with somebody, people are going to start to be like, this is just a partisan witch hunt against him. So it doesn't help him change the direction of things. But at some point, I think it has diminishing returns in terms of the damage it can do, unless, unless it's got a bullet to it, unless it's...
Don, we spoke to Senator Wisniewski today, and also his counterpart in the Senate that are leading the investigations. They made it clear. Anybody who says, hey, it's too much of a distraction, or they're like, we can walk and chew gum. Believe me, we can do this and do the state's business, and nothing significant is going to happen until this thing gets vetted. That said, Christie went for an hour and 40 minutes, taking every single question that the press corps had. But is there a certain point, and have we reached it yet, where he does himself a favor to sit down for a long one-on-one interview with a reporter and talking about, I made mistakes here, show some contrition, but make it clear that all these side allegations that are coming about don't have a scintilla of merit, because that's not how he ran New Jersey for 4 years?
I think it would be a huge mistake for the governor to come forward. Yes, and admit any further mistake, because he already jumped out there and told us what he had to say for, an hour, whatever, how long that news conference was. I want to point out, though, Richard, that's not new what the governor did, because it immediately reminds me of former New York City Mayor David Dinkins. Remember, he had the huge tax issue?
Yeah.
So Dinkins sat down with reporters, exactly the same questions until they were exhausted for, I believe, about 2 hours. So this is nothing new. Elected officials do this when they're in trouble. But Andrew did make a good point about distractions, because right now is Grand Slam territory for Chris Christie. Anybody in public office right now, this is what they do, male or female. They put on their government entity shirt or jacket. It says sanitation department, mayor, or governor, and they're out there for the next 24 hours, nonstop news conferences. We're on top. We've got every detail.
And they declared a state of emergency in New Jersey, so, and he's good at this. Yeah, he was certainly good at this in Sandy. He's been good in the other storms.
But he's lost credibility now.
Right, and you can't get it back in one day. And this is all assuming, of course, that there is no smoking gun. But some of the language today, Andrew, that he said, I was a little surprised by. And granted, people are paying attention to the storm right now, and they're only waiting until the investigation starts. But when he went directly at Washington, that New Jersey didn't want to be Washington, that we work together, it's totally seemed to run counter to if you talk to the Fort Lee mayor, or you talk to the mayor in Hoboken,
Sure.
or you talk to a whole bunch of other mayors, that if they didn't play ball with them, they were going to play a political price and pay back, at least per their allegations. So, point being, he still went with that as a message, which was a little surprising to me today, because he kind of stuck the thumb in the eye.
He has to, though, because he has to. First of all, he's running for president. Let's make no bones about it. He's running for president. And as the Republican who's more moderate than a lot of the competition he's going to face in the primaries, his claim to fame is, I'm the guy who can work across the aisle. I'm the guy who can get stuff done.
I agree with you. But my only question is, Andrew, did he need to say that, late January? Couldn't he have waited to do that? He has press conferences every flipping day. He could have done that in a month or two if this thing calmed down.
Not with the same amount of attention on him. I mean, the national networks, the national cable outfits were taking his inaugural address live. There's no chance that they do that, for another guy.
Yep.
When Terry McAuliffe takes over as governor of Virginia, they're not going to do that. In fact, he already took over as governor, and they didn't do that. So you have the attention on you, and he's still trying to run that national campaign. He's not. He'll pick and choose his times to try to deal with these scandals as he has to. I think an interview probably will happen at some point. But he's got to try to push his agenda for 2016 if he wants to make any headway at all.
Apparently some are pressing that he changed some of the people he surrounded himself with for the last 15 years here that have elevated him to this point. It's always a tough spot for an elected, isn't it? Figuring out when to cut ties with the people who got you to where you are right now.
But normally when you look at folks that go from being a regular governor to the White House, they have a team that's been loyal with them for many, many years. And that's what Christie basically had in place. And now he's in a position where he's starting from scratch. And not only that, if you're going to work with Christie and be close to him, you've got to say to yourself, well, what happens when something goes wrong? Is the governor going to throw me under the bus the same way he threw the others under the bus?
It's even complicated. Some of these guys close to him have worked on national campaigns too, so it's not just they're Trenton guys here. So it would be really fascinating how this plays out. But investigations and actual hearings are going to start on this sooner than later, right?
Oh yeah, it's tune in tomorrow, as they say in the soap operas.
All right. Now when we come back on RFL, we're going to get to an unfolding situation. The Olympics not too far away, but it is unbelievable, some of the detailed threats that are coming out of Sochi here, real threats in the Olympics, and also old threats here. And it's got a lot of people wondering how to secure the everyday things that we take for granted. Could we see scenes like this return here? Also, we got a Super Bowl coming up. Remember that. We'll get into all that conversation with our guest after this.